Welcome to the Sacred Designer Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Martin, kitchen and bath designer, entrepreneur, artist, and creative soul behind the Kitchen and Bath Digest. This is a show where we weave soulful design into every space and redefine what it means to create with intention. Here we don't just create beautiful homes, we design from the heart, embracing both the practical and spiritual. By pressing play, you'll be joining a community that creates not just for function, but for a sense of sacred space and personal alignment. On this podcast, you will learn to merge the art of design with soulful living, turning every remodeling project into a journey of self-expression and holistic beauty. This isn't just about kitchens and bathrooms, it's about embracing design as a path to a richer, more beautiful life. So let's step into this sacred designer together and create spaces that resonate with your soul. Welcome to the Sacred Designer Podcast. If you're new here, we're going to talk about the intersection of home and soul and how the spaces we create live that are never just aesthetic or functional, but they're about energy, intention, and transformation. So I sit down with designers, organizers, healers, and space holders who understand our homes are mirrors. And when we shift our spaces, we shift our lives. Whether you're remodeling your kitchen or you're organizing your home, rearranging a closet, you're in the right place to believe that it's deeper than it actually looks. Yeah. Here's Caitlin, founder of Spaces Organized and Styled, and she is a life coach and professional organizer and is a visionary force behind Spaces Organized and Style, and she is prominently a holistic residential organizer, and that is what her firm's about, in revolutionizing the concept of the tidiness and the harmony in living spaces, and her passion is for helping individuals and families achieving lasting and transformative results through organizing in the divine force behind her remarkable success is that. So as an expert in the field, Caitlin firmly believes that true organization goes beyond merely decluttering physical spaces. It involves nurturing the whole individual with her unique personalized approach, and she strives to create environments that promote emotional well-being, mental clarity, and overall life satisfaction. So would you say that's you in a nutshell?
But yeah, that's basically it. Okay. That's my life story.
So I'm really glad you're here. I know you're really busy. I think about like where I was, where you are at this point, it feels like such a lifetime ago, but I'd love to see you kind of, on the socials and growing into your motherhood. One of my questions is when you're doing a custom home organization and you help people find their spiritual practice, is that something that you also do? Are you still offering that? Do you see those things as two different things, or do you find those kind of as like a collaborative thing?
That's a good question. I think it's more of, it depends on the client. Like when I can walk in and I can already see, because we are in the most intimate spaces of their lives and everything is on display, good, bad, the ugly, all of it. So you can walk in and sort of get a sense of like where somebody is already at. Do they have things on the walls? Do they have things on display? And if they do, then I just lean into whatever that might be. If they don't have anything though, it is kind of interesting as the conversation unfolds, what they're willing to disclose and what their comfort level is. And then we just sort of push the boundary and the envelope a little bit with that. But I do think that it's probably siloed initially, and then we sort of bridge the gap as that relationship forms and as their comfort level starts to build.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, because that's kind of like one of my first questions is when you first enter the home, is there anything like practically speaking that you necessarily notice right away, or do you feel anything, or what is that like for you when you first walk in? I know you just said that you notice certain things, but what does that feel like?
I honestly think like the first thing that we notice is body language. How is the client feeling? What are they sort of giving off as we're walking into their home? Because we don't take it lightly that we could be the first people who have come into their home in 5, 10, 15 years. They may have a level of shame and embarrassment and a level of guilt around what the state of their house looks like. I'm constantly reading, how are they feeling? Am I just allowed in the front entry space and they're not allowing me to go deeper? That's fine. We're going to sit there and we're going to chat for like 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I've stood in an entryway for 3 hours before the client was finally ready for me to walk through the rest of the house. That's what I'm first picking up on with a non-judgmental tone is, what is their body language? How are they feeling with me even being in the space?
That's a big feeling, like
Yeah.
shame in general and just guilt. Like that's wild. So
Yeah.
that's very revealing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any other things that you've noticed or felt like when you first walk in?
I obviously like pick up on the vibe of the house. Is like, what is the state that the house is currently in? And it's interesting to see how is the family functioning in that space? How are the residents of that household, moving about in the areas? What is sort of feeling stuck? What is feeling like the energy is just flowing? But, initially we can't progress unless the client is emotionally ready to progress. So we can only do so much physical. They first have to be ready, like internally, to do that work. I just want to read them. I want to read their energy and I want to pick up on like, what are they feeling? Were there certain words that I said that I sort of got a response out of, that good or bad? And then now I know that was a trigger word. I'm not going to go with that direction again, or they really like the language I used over here. Let's push it and go this, direction.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's like the most common thing people are asked for you to organize? Is there any difference in between how they ask or what it is that you end up doing, or is there a common thread there?
There's not really a common thread because we sort of like, we get the gamut of everybody, whether that be pre-packing and organizing or downsizing. But the downsizing, even in that, has such a negative connotation. So we switch it to right sizing. Maybe we don't need as large of a home that we're living in, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house just doesn't make sense anymore if all the kids have left the home. And that's just so much upkeep. So we switch it from downsizing to right sizing. And then in the client's mind, they're no longer like, oh, that chapter of my life is over with. It's like, yeah, that's just, this is the natural progression of where things are supposed to go. We're right sizing the home for what you actually need. But so there's not really like a common thread. We really do get everybody, even new parents, like the influx of stuff that comes in with a baby, all of that. So we see everybody.
It almost like to me, what I think of what kind of comes through is that it feels like you're almost recalibrating, like the new energy flow and kind of like reformatting that.
Yeah.
Would you say that's kind of like,
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, actually, that thread, that thought process, because yeah, it is a recalibration, not just if there's somebody who comes into the home like a new baby, but also we work with people who have recently been widowed or a divorce. And that is one of the areas that we talk about is a life transition. And that could be anything. It could be a new job. It could be a loss of a job. It could be the in-laws moving in. I mean, there's so many things that happen in a life transition that really disrupt the flow of the home that we sort of, like you said, have to go back and recalibrate.
yeah, definitely. I mean, do you ever help people find their spiritual place? What does that spiritual practice mean to you? And like, how do you handle that?
It's interesting because it kind of depends on like where the client is already coming from. If they already have something in place or they are already somewhat familiar with some of the practices, we sort of want to expand upon it a little bit. But if somebody is like never has done anything, then we're going to start with like, what is our why? Why are we here? What is the end goal? And that's like broad in general, but that's just sort of like the entryway into it. And then we're going to say, okay, now let's maybe sprinkle in some meditation. Did you like that? Are you not somebody who can meditate? Do we need some ascents to go in through the home as we're working? How does music feel? Where can we sort of like push it a little bit? And the interesting thing with spiritual practices is that everybody sort of has their own little tools in their toolbox, and we have a bunch of tools that we can throw in with our clients. It's just what are they going to gravitate towards and what feels most comfortable and aligned for them in that moment.
I'm going to kind of take a shift here. So like when you are organizing, do you feel like you're kind of letting someone release something or because when I think of organizing, I feel like the first thing I think of is I'm like, there's probably a lot of things that people are holding on to that they just need to let go.
Yeah.
And so like, what happens in those moments? Like, do you have to hold space for them or like, it sounds like that's probably one of the most difficult things.
No, it really is. And honestly, like if somebody's not ready, they're not ready. And that's where there's a little bit of friction in the work that we do is because you do have to hold space. And maybe it is that they're holding on to something in the past, but they're just not emotionally ready yet. And we can do the work around that. But at the end of the day, if there's still some emotional hold up there, we can only push the boundary so far in the envelope. At the end of the day, they have to be ready to do the releasing. If we push it and they're not, we're just recreating trauma again. And we don't want to go back and, open up those old wounds. They have to be fully healed. But when they are ready, yeah, it's sort of like this weight is lifted off. And that's something that they are constantly saying is that this personification of the stuff that they just feel is like a weight on their shoulders or a weight has been lifted or they feel lighter. they are using these words that personify what the external environment is around them and how they feel about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And like more or less like, which is a beautiful thing because you're holding this sacred space. And maybe that's something that don't necessarily realize or they recognize initially, the fact that you can be there for them. And quite honestly, that's a gift because like, you're reading their energy, you're reading the space, and you're helping them just release really what no longer serves them
Yeah.
in a way that they don't even realize,
Yeah.
creating room to be more aligned. That's kind of like how I interpreted it, at least.
I think that's true. And I think a lot of like the energetic healing work that happens is stuff that is not conscious to the person that's happening to, and it doesn't have to be. We can be doing things energetically that serves them that they're not even aware of, that they just feel a shift in the energy with us, with their home, with their stuff, and they're just ready to let it go.
Have you ever thought about your work in that way, that it was just in the way that it pairs? Like, have you always kind of
Yeah.
had that philosophy?
No, 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 no. I didn't have it initially, but it happened pretty quick in the business. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it was only a couple months into starting the business and then being in my own spiritual practice and, seeing things happen and change in my own home and my life that for me, it was just a no-brainer. Like if I was going through this and I was having these revelations and enjoying the tools so much, there had to be other people out there who needed this as well. And so it was, for me, it was just a natural blend of like wanting to share what I had learned, but also feeling really jaded with the industry of like making everything look beautiful and pretty and putting, buy this container and it's going to fix everything. I was like, that's not what's going to happen. We need to, unpack a little bit about what's happening inside first and make sure that you're good inside because our external spaces are just, like you said, they're a mirror of what's happening. So
I totally agree that you have to unpack because, like, with, for example, like, when I'm designing a kitchen, like, there's usually two people involved, usually. And there's a lot to unpack there because,
yeah,
like, sometimes one cooks or sometimes two cook. And then they're like, but no, like, I need this. And that makes me feel loved and heard this way if I get that. And so there's just a
yeah,
lot to unpack. And quite honestly, like, I, as of recently, just realized that there was a lot involved energetically, the way things are, placed and things like that as well. Was there ever a day that you felt like that was ever separate, or has it always been kind of like integrated for you?
No, there was definitely moments early in the business where it was completely separate. And, it was, and even still, there's such a stigma around this new age spiritual woo-woo stuff that it's just not going to fly with some of the people that I work with.
That's
We're
true.
not going to go there. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I still can't move the needle energetically for them and know that when I leave the house, things have happened that they're not even aware of. And I recently had a conversation with somebody about feng shui, and they're like, oh, I don't believe in feng shui. Feng shui is not a thing. In the exact same conversation, they told me how they don't like the position of a bed up against the door because it doesn't feel right. And I'm like, okay, well, you're saying the things, but all right, we're not going to call it feng shui. We'll just call it like that's not the proper place to place a bed in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to. I might come out and say something, but the client doesn't always have to be made fully aware of it. But yeah, no, there was a definite distinction between both practices in the early days of what we do.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, there's a reason why feng shui has been around for several centuries,
Yeah.
but I definitely tap into that too sometimes too. It definitely sounds like you're helping people find clarity and peace and just alignment, whether they know it or not. I mean, sometimes people are aware, but sometimes they're not. That's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, in my work, I definitely blend, that vision and just, the practical energetics of it. And you just kind of have to go with the flow of what they're offering to you because
Yeah.
sometimes you can't, just like you said, you can't be too woo woo sometimes. But
Right. But
but
it's amazing when you get those one clients who are just going to totally geek out with you on it. And then you're like, oh, this is my tribe. These are my people. Like, let's deep dive into this. Like, let's do a breathwork session ahead of time or whatever we can do. And that's like just amazing to get those clients who are
yes,
just,
no,
they're in
totally.
this space with you. Yeah.
Yes. And then like all of a sudden they kind of turn to me, they're like, well, hello, sister. And I'm like, hi.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, hi.
You.
I love those clients because then you're like, okay, there is like these people out here. Like we could do this. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, why do you have a 200-pound amethyst in the corner? And I'm like, well,
Yeah. Like, just don't worry about it.
yeah, it's definitely a good opener for me. So I think that says a lot about you. It says a little bit about me, but let's talk a little bit more about your home. don't know if you have anything to say about that, but let's say if your home could speak, do you think it would have anything to say to you? Or, I mean, I know it's okay if you don't have an answer for that. Do you feel like you all are also a good way to put it is like, are there certain practices that you kind of, initiate for your clients that are big ones for you too?
Yeah, go energetic reset at the beginning of the month is huge for me. And when I can, clearing out the front of my home. So the windows, the door, the entry space, making sure that the energy is ready to be flowed in for the new month. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's so much that you can do around like the entry space of your home. I in feng shui recently learned like the water is such a big aspect of that and having a water feature. So I bought this little water fountain that now sits at the front of my door and just making sure that nothing is blocking the front door because that's where all of the energy of the house is getting flushed into. We don't primarily use our front door that much, but I am trying to incorporate going in and out of the front door more often, making sure we actually, so funny, we actually had a coat closet that when you opened the front door, you hit the wall of the coat closet. And I was like, no. So like one of my pregnancy projects was to take down that coat closet. And I did. I took a hammer to it. I took it in
Get
my
it, girl. Oh my gosh. I
yeah.
was tiling my backsplash like 5 months pregnant. I was nesting hard.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, the nesting project. That's right. So I was like determined to get that wall out before baby arrived. I was like, we're not having this. This is such bad flow of energy. So I really do incorporate like making sure my front entry like looks great when I can, cobwebs, taking a leaf blower to the front, making sure any leaves are swept out. It's also really great energy to put like high value coins underneath your front doormat. So I do that.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So like blowing like a handful of cinnamon in through my front door. And if I can't do that, making sure I have like fresh cinnamon sticks, or if I have a paper bill and writing like what I want for that month on it. That's always really important. I've got like sprays that I spray around everything.
It sounds like it takes it's like a whole day event for
It's
you.
like a day event. Yeah. So if like I don't get to it, I'm like, okay, well the energy's still there, like on the second. So if I have to like not miss, get to the first of the month, I always do the second. But I always try to go around and I sage the house like every couple of weeks. I make sure like we have Palo Santo. If like a disruption happens in our lives, I always like to make sure we sage it afterwards and clear that energy out. Um, my house right now is just in such a state of transition. Baby has definitely brought in a lot more than I initially thought she was. Amazon is being delivered like every day, and it's kind of stressing me out. So our house would be called a state of transition at this point.
1,000%. It doesn't stop, girl, between all the gifting and
Yeah.
just the needs and all the things. We literally have a playroom at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I think too, like, my design aspect has completely shifted since baby, which I did not expect to happen, but like post baby, now I'm like into prints and wallpaper and area rugs, and I was complete minimalist. Like I did not want anything fringe or excess. And now I wouldn't say it's excess, but I do like a little bit more flair. And so again, just transitioning in the home, not cluttered by any means, but just adding a little bit more personality that I didn't initially have.
okay, that's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there any other elements that we haven't covered that you feel like kind of illustrates more of what you do?
No, it really is like the blending of the energetic spiritual space and the client's home. And I think that initially clients don't really recognize that there is such a connection. But after our work together and during our work together and through conversations or examples, and maybe even some homework assignments, they may start to pick up on the fact that their house is that external reflection of what's happening inside. And that might be uncomfortable to look at because oftentimes, like we go back to being some shame and embarrassment and guilt. I would say particularly around women, but that's not always the case. We do get a lot of clients who are males and they also feel that way. But that's hard for them to look at. And they sort of have to be ready to do that work to get the lasting effect that they're looking for. And if we don't go dive into the internal spaces first, the external is never going to stay organized. It's always going to revert back to what is comfortable, even if that is something that they dislike.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've kind of always circled back to like not finishing like the planning process of a remodel or not organizing that room or that closet. It's always comes to around being an energy block and
Uh,
and finding that flow of how to release it. And it's very emotional.
Yeah, yeah. And however we can like sort of ease that emotional angst to the client is helpful. But honestly, one thing I learned in a plant medicine ceremony a couple years ago is that the only way out is through. Like you have to go through it in order to get out on the other end. And that's it. Like it sucks, but the more that you keep running from it and turning away from it, the harder it's just going to be. You really do have to sit in it and you have to just go through it to get out on the other side.
Totally agree. I love that. Okay. Well, I have a quick lightning round. You want to do
Okay.
it real quick? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, what's one small shift in a home that creates the biggest transformation?
A routine.
Ooh, okay. Yes, I love that. Favorite thing to organize?
Probably a closet. I love when clients have like beautiful clothing and then you create this like beautiful artwork just in their closet. I love it.
Love that. I would love if I could design it and then you could put it in. I think that sounds
Yeah, yeah, I know. We work like hand in hand. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
okay. If you could organize one thing in the world right now, what would it be? I suppose other than a closet, because that's your favorite one.
We're actually about to head out to do a kitchen space and I'm really excited for this one. The client has given us like carte blanche to do whatever we want and I'm thrilled with it. I'm excited.
I feel like the pantry would be a good spot.
It is.
A pantry?
Yeah, yeah, pantry. Yep, pantry and closets. Yeah, it's
Love it.
exciting.
One word that describes how you want people to feel in their home.
Loved.
Oh, that's a lovely one. Okay. Beautiful. All right. Anything else you feel like you might want to say?
No, just, sit with it a little bit. If it feels uncomfortable, it's probably something that you need to look at a little bit. It's the uncomfortability-ness of life where we just need to grow.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I totally agree. Well, I really appreciate the spiritual layer that you're incorporating, and I love everything that you had to say.
Thank
Where,
you.
if people are interested in getting something organized, where would they find you?
On our website, spacesorganizedstyle.com, Instagram, we're we don't really hang out too much on TikTok, but supposedly we do have it. But I would say Instagram and our website are the best places.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's everything, but I appreciate your time and
I appreciate you. Thank you.